Hi, welcome to the Savage Nation. Well, we have a lot to talk about today. We have the question of the Tim Walz question. To me, he looks like a true Manchurian candidate, meaning he is a naked communist. He doesn't even hide it. Virtually every one of his policies may have been crafted by the leaders of communist China. Let's start from the top. Tim Walz chose his wedding date to coincide with the Tiananmen Square anniversary, and then they honeymooned in China. He wanted to celebrate the communist Chinese regime crushing dissidents with tanks, running over them with tanks. So let me repeat that again in case you think he looks like Warren Buffett and he's just a kind of doughboy from Minnesota, an all shucks guy who does pheasant hunting, and he's not so bad. He's very bad indeed. I think he is a true Manchurian candidate. He's going to be a breath away from the presidency if she pulls it off, and don't discount her either, by the way. If you don't think vice presidents count, then tell me how Kamala Harris is now running for the presidency and neck with Trump in the polls, if not ahead of him some polls. The vice presidency is important. Now we have a naked communist, Tim Walz, one breath away if she and he should pull this off with a little help from their friends in the media. So this is a frightening time in American history. And I had to go back in history to try and put this together. And I will tell you right now that I am going to tell you about a book called Inside the Plot to Destroy America, because I saw this coming. Maybe I didn't name Tim Walz, but everything this man stands for and says, this man is the real Red Guard. Now, who is he? Well, his connections to China are more personal than most American politicians. They go back decades. After graduating from Nebraska's Chadron State College, which is, I don't know, as low as it gets, with a Bachelor of Science in Social Science Education, that's also as low as it gets. He taught at a Chinese high school for about a year through Harvard University's World Teach program, which, of course, as you know, is a communist front group at the time. So he gets a soft degree from a crappy college. He leaves America, he goes to China, and he teaches in China, where he gets his brainwashed by his handlers, okay? He has since visited China 30 times. Walz is a pro-war. He's in favor of more war with Russia. He's not a typical liberal who wants less war. He wants more war. He's anti-business, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, Somali gang-loving lowlife, period. Now, you have to study a little bit, as I did this morning. I've known, for example, about the Farmers Workers Party in Minnesota for many years. I've been in the political world for many, many years, and I knew Minnesota has a long history of progressive or radical left-wing politics. But now they have veered into insanity. Did you know that? Did you know that an FBI itself, the FBI reported that Minneapolis' Somali community has become the Islamic terrorist recruitment capital of the U.S.? Did you know that? 45 Somalis have left Minnesota to join the ranks of either the Somalia-based Islamic insurgency, Al-Shabaab, or the Iraq and Syria-based ISIS. Let me slow this down for you. And most of them attend a single mosque in Minnesota that your friend, Tim Walz, frequents and supports. Did you know that Tim Walz changed the state flag of Minnesota to resemble that of Somalia? I don't think you know any of this. So you got the China connection, you got the Somalia connection, you got the Islamic terrorist connection, and he's being presented as a centrist to those of you who are politically, I'm not going to call you naive. You don't have the time to study these things. I've been doing this most of my adult life. That's what you pay me for. You pay me to do this, so that's what I do. He is the most far-left governor in the United States. In fact, the reason they did not pick Newsom is because Newsom is too centrist. And of course, Shapiro was passed over because he's too Jewish. There's a double entendre in that, and it's a joke for those of you who get the joke. Shapiro was allegedly going to be picked, but he was passed over because he was too Jewish. Newsom was passed over because he was too centrist. Instead, they picked the Warren Buffett lookalike, this guy, because he fits the bill perfectly as a Manchurian candidate. And that's the opening to my show today. Now, I want some applause out there in the audience. That means you can comment on the chat line. We're up on 4 different platforms today for the first time. We're testing a new audio and video form on our platform. In the past, we were live only on YouTube and on Twitter, and then we would post it on other sites. Today, we are live on 4 different platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, and I think one other I don't really know. I have something interesting to show you. I've been going through my archives, which are rather extensive, and I found a very interesting piece of history from the Vietnam War. And it says, know your enemy. Let's see if I can get this up in front of the camera. A little difficult with the microphone between me and the poster. I'll just run it by you for a minute. Okay. Know your enemy. And this was given out to troops in Vietnam. And it showed the different forms that the enemy came in so that the troops wouldn't be fooled and killed accidentally. Know your enemy. Viet Cong Main Force officer. Viet Cong Main Force soldier. North Vietnamese Army soldier. North Vietnamese Army non-combatant medic. But then there were political cadres who were not combatants in Vietnam, but they led the communist war against the Vietnamese people who wanted freedom. So you need to know your enemy, and they are your enemy. They are naked communists. There was a book done in the 1950s called The Naked Communist. You should read it. I don't remember who wrote it. I think it was written by the former director of the FBI. I'm pretty sure of it, who's been laughed at and called, he'd be in popular form right now. They made a joke of the fact that J. Edgar Hoover was a cross-dresser. Of course, today they would glorify him, I suppose, for his cross-dressing. But they made that an issue, that you couldn't trust him because of that. I don't think that's a big issue, frankly. I think a person's politics matter more than whether they wear a dress at night, personally. But J. Edgar Hoover wrote a book called The Naked Communist. I believe it was in the 50s. And it was given to me by an important political figure, and I read it, and I was shocked by it, and it influenced me in many different ways. So now we wake up, and we have a candidate, Tim Walz, who has 30 years of connections to communist China. He and his gun moll wife chose the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre for their wedding anniversary so they would not remember dissidents being